Have you ever stood in the wreckage of your own life? I mean, truly stood there. Dust settling around you, the silence deafening after the explosion, and realized you have nothing left. Not just the money, or the business, or the fancy house all gone. Poof, but the asterisk belief asterisk. The belief in people, in loyalty, in the very ground you thought was solid beneath your feet. That was me, 1 year ago. Standing in an empty apartment with bare walls that seemed to scream my failure back at me, holding an eviction notice in one hand and a crumpled up bankruptcy filing in the other. My name is Maya, and I used to have an empire. Not just a business, an asterisk empire asterisk, built with sweat, tears, and way too much caffeine. Innovative design, disrupting the market, the whole shebang. We were on magazine covers, winning awards. I thought we were invincible. And at the heart of it, my business partner, David. More than a partner, really. We started this thing in my garage, fueled by instant noodles and impossible dreams. He was my right hand, my confidant, the brother I never had, or so I thought. And then there was Mark, my fiancé, the man I was building a future with, planning a wedding with, the man I trusted with my heart, my finances, my passwords, everything. Turns out, while I was busy conquering the world, they were busy conquering asterisk me asterisk. It happened so fast, it still makes my head spin. Whispers behind my back first, then hushed meetings I wasn't invited to. Financial irregularities suddenly appeared, expertly crafted, pointing directly at me. Documents were altered, emails fabricated. David, with his intimate knowledge of the company, and Mark, with his access to my personal life and finances, wove a narrative so convincing, so damning, that even asterisk I asterisk started to doubt my own memory for a terrifying second. They accused me of embezzlement, of fraud, of mismanagement. They used my own success, my drive, my focus on the big picture, and twisted it into recklessness, into greed. It was a corporate coup, executed with chilling precision. While Mark drained our joint accounts and mysteriously lost evidence that would have exonerated me, David rallied the board, the investors, painting me as a liability, a loose cannon who needed to be cut loose for the good of the company we built. Have you ever been betrayed by the two people you trusted most in the entire world simultaneously? It's not just a stab in the back, it's like being ripped apart from the inside out. One day, I was CEO, planning my wedding on top of the world. The next, I was locked out of my office, my accounts frozen, my reputation shredded in industry gossip columns, and my fiancé was suddenly devastated by my betrayal, publicly aligning himself with David while privately securing his own golden parachute. They took everything, the company, the money, my home, which was tied up in the business assets. My reputation was in tatters. Friends evaporated, suddenly too busy to return calls. The shame was a physical weight, heavy and suffocating. And the final nail? Bankruptcy. Forced into it, creditors baying for blood, fueled by the lies David and Mark fed them. So there I was, Maya, formerly the empire builder, now just Maya. Bankrupt. Betrayed. Standing in that echoey, empty apartment with nothing but a suitcase of clothes and a heart full of jagged pieces. David and Mark thought they'd won. They thought they'd crushed me, erased me. They probably toasted their success with expensive champagne in my asterisk old office, laughing about how easy it was. They figured I'd just disappear, crawl away somewhere to lick my wounds and fade into obscurity. If you've ever been pushed down that hard, told you're nothing, had everything ripped away by people you loved, you know that feeling. That moment when you hit absolute rock bottom and the only thing left to do is look up. They thought it was the end of my story. Oh, they had no idea. It wasn't the end, it was the goddamn crucible. And deep down, beneath the shock and the grief and the blinding rage, a tiny, furious spark refused to die. They took my empire. Fine. I'd build a new one, from scratch. And this time, I'd use my own two hands. Literally. Rock bottom isn't a metaphor, you guys. It's a physical place. It's the peeling linoleum floor of a studio apartment you can barely afford in a neighborhood you used to drive through with the windows up. It's the taste of ramen noodles for the 5th night in a row, because that's all the grocery budget allows. It's the sinking feeling in your stomach when an unknown number calls, knowing it's probably another debt collector with hollow threats and feigned sympathy. That was my reality for months. The shame was constant, running into someone I used to know, someone from my old life. Pure agony. The pitying looks, the awkward questions. "Oh, Maya, I heard, are you okay?" It felt like wearing a giant flashing sign that screamed failure. I tried finding work in my field, design and tech, but my name was poison. David and Mark had done their work well, painting me as incompetent and untrustworthy. Doors slammed shut in my face, politely but firmly. The only jobs I could get were the ones nobody else wanted. Cleaning offices late at night, waiting tables at a greasy spoon diner where the tips barely covered bus fare, serving coffee to people who looked straight through me, just like I used to look straight through the service staff in my old life. Karma's a bitch, right? The humiliation was brutal. One rainy Tuesday, scrubbing dried ketchup off a booth at the diner, I saw David, and he was having lunch with some slick investor type, laughing, sketching something on a napkin, probably my company's next big move. He didn't see me at first, hidden behind my apron and exhaustion, but then he looked up, needed a refill on his water. Our eyes met. For a split second, confusion flickered across his face, just like Sterling at the gala in that other story. Then recognition dawned, followed by, was it pity? No. Worse. Smug satisfaction. He smirked, a tiny, almost imperceptible lift at the corner of his mouth. He didn't say anything, he didn't have to. The look said it all. "Look how far you've fallen, this is where you belong." He deliberately left a $5 bill on the table, not even a standard tip, more like an insult, and walked out, clapping the investor on the back, leaving me shaking with a rage so profound it almost made me drop the water pitcher. And Mark? Oh, I saw him too. Driving a flashy new convertible I knew had indirectly paid for. He had a new woman draped on his arm, laughing that same fake laugh he used to use with me. He saw me walking home from the bus stop, drenched from the rain, and actually slowed down, not out of concern, but to make sure I saw him. Saw his success, saw his happiness built on my ruin. He rolled down the window, gave me a condescending smile, and said, "Rough day, Maya? Maybe you should have thought twice before trying to screw everyone over." Then he sped off, splashing muddy water all over me. That was the moment, the absolute lowest point. Standing there, soaked, humiliated, invisible to the world except as an object of scorn for the very people who destroyed me. I went back to my crappy apartment, collapsed onto the lumpy mattress that served as my bed and couch, and just sobbed. Gut-wrenching, hopeless sobs. I wanted to give up, disappear. What was the point? They'd won. They had everything and I had nothing. Less than nothing, just mountains of debt and a shattered reputation. I stared at the bare walls, the single dim bulb overhead, the overflowing laundry basket in the corner. It felt like a prison cell, and then my eyes landed on it. A small, forgotten box tucked under the rickety kitchen table. It held the few personal things I'd managed to salvage: old photos, sentimental trinkets, things with no monetary value, things David and Mark hadn't bothered to steal. Mostly junk. But buried at the bottom, under a faded picture of my grandmother, was her old wooden recipe box. Grandma Elena. She was this incredible force of nature, survived wars and poverty, and always found joy in creating things with her hands, especially baking. Her kitchen was magic, filled with the smell of yeast and sugar and love. She taught me everything: how to knead dough until it was silk, how to coax flavor from simple ingredients, how to bake bread that could make you cry. It was so good. I hadn't thought about it in years. In my old life, I ordered artisanal bread from fancy bakeries. Who had time to bake? I pulled out the box, the wood smooth and worn from decades of use. Inside, handwritten recipe cards, stained with flour and butter from generations past, and suddenly, an overwhelming urge washed over me. Not just to bake, but to create something real, something tangible, something that couldn't be stolen by lies or lawsuits, something mine asterisk. I scraped together the last few dollars in my wallet, bought flour, yeast, salt, sugar, basic ingredients. My kitchen was tiny, my oven ancient and unreliable. But that night, surrounded by the ghosts of my past failures, I baked. I kneaded the dough, feeling the satisfying resistance, pounding out my frustration, my grief, my anger, the familiar rhythm, the warmth spreading through my hands. It felt like coming home. The apartment filled with the smell of baking bread, a scent so comforting, so fundamentally good, it momentarily chased away the stench of failure and despair. It wasn't an empire. It wasn't even a plan. It was just a loaf of bread. Imperfect, slightly lopsided thanks to the tilted oven rack, but it was the first thing I had created. Truly created since my world fell apart. I cut a slice, still warm. It tasted like hope. A tiny, fragile crumb of hope, but it was enough. Maybe I couldn't reclaim my old empire. Maybe I couldn't fight David and Mark in their world of boardrooms and legal battles. But here, in this tiny kitchen, with these worn recipe cards and my own 2 hands, maybe, just maybe, I could start building something new. From scratch, literally. So, I started baking. Seriously. Forget coding algorithms. My life became about hydration levels and fermentation times. That first loaf wasn't just a fluke, it was a lifeline. I baked another, then another. My tiny apartment perpetually smelled like a real bakery. It was the only thing that felt right, the only thing I felt I had any control over. But you can't pay rent with sourdough starters. I needed to make this work. I started small. Really small. I took a few loaves to the local farmer's market, setting up a tiny folding table between a woman selling questionable crystals and a guy hawking artisanal kale. Honestly, I felt ridiculous. Me, the former tech CEO, shilling bread on a sidewalk. The first hour, crickets. People walked past, maybe glancing, but nobody stopped. The old insecurities, the shame started creeping back in. What was I thinking? This was insane. Then an elderly woman paused. She sniffed the air, her eyes lighting up. "Is that rye bread, like my bubby used to make?" she asked. It was. A dense, dark rye from one of Grandma Elena's oldest recipes. She bought a loaf. Then she came back 10 minutes later and bought another. "Best rye I've had in 30 years, she declared loudly, making the kale guy scowl. That was the first spark. A few more people stopped, intrigued. By the end of the day, I'd sold out. Made about $60. It wasn't millions, wasn't even minimum wage for the hours I'd put in. But walking home that evening, $60 cash in my pocket felt more real, more earned than any 7-figure deal I'd ever closed. So I kept going. Every weekend, farmer's market. Weeknights after my soul-crushing diner shift, I baked. I experimented, perfected the sourdough, nailed the ciabatta. People started recognizing me. The bread lady. They started looking for me, placing orders in advance. My little table became a destination. The $60 turned into $100, then $200. I started using slightly better ingredients, bought a used stand mixer off Craigslist. Tiny upgrades, monumental victories. I started an Instagram page at Maya's Bread from Scratch or something equally uninspired, posting pictures of golden crusts and airy crumbs. It grew slowly, organically. People shared photos, left comments, local food bloggers discovered me. "Hidden gem alert," one headline screamed. Things were happening, but the grind was relentless. 16, 18-hour days. My hands were constantly covered in flour. My back ached. I lived in a state of perpetual exhaustion, and the shadow of David and Mark still loomed. Occasionally, news of their company, my company, would pop up. A new product launch. based on ideas *I, D** sketched. A feature in a business journal praising David's visionary leadership. Each mention felt like a fresh twist of the knife. They were living the life I should have had, built on the foundations, *I* laid, while I was measuring flour in a cramped kitchen. One afternoon, a sleek black car pulled up outside the farmer's market. My blood ran cold. Mark stepped out. He wasn't smiling this time. He looked irritated. He walked over to my table, now crowded with customers, and looked down his nose at my rustic loaves. "Maya," he said, his voice carrying, "isn't this quaint?" Didn't realize things were quite this desperate. He picked up a baguette, examining it like it was an alien object. So this is what the great tech innovator is reduced to? Baking bread? If you've ever wanted to just scream in someone's smug face, you know the feeling. But I looked at my customers, loyal faces who genuinely loved what I made. I looked at my hands, strong and capable, dusted with flour, and I felt not shame, but pride. "It's honest work, Mark," I said quietly, meeting his gaze. "Something you wouldn't understand." He scoffed, threw the baguette back on the table, and stalked off. But I saw a flicker of something else in his eyes. Not pity this time. Maybe annoyance? Like he couldn't quite reconcile the broken woman he thought he'd left behind with the person standing before him, surrounded by people who valued what she created. The real turning point came unexpectedly. A local restaurant owner, famous for his commitment to quality ingredients, tasted my sourdough. He placed a huge standing order. Then another restaurant followed, then a small gourmet grocery store. Suddenly, my tiny apartment kitchen wasn't enough. I took a leap of faith, pooling every penny I'd saved, securing a small loan based on my growing wholesale contracts. I found a small derelict storefront on a forgotten side street, cheap rent, good bones. And with help from some amazing people I'd met along the way, customers who volunteered time, other small business owners offering advice, we renovated it. We painted walls, installed ovens, scrubbed floors, built it literally from the ground up. Elena's Hearth opened 6 months later. Simple, warm, filled with the scent of real bread. And people came. They lined up down the block. It wasn't just about the bread anymore. It was about the story, the resilience, the authenticity people craved. We sourced local ingredients, hired people who needed second chances, built a community around food made with care. And me, I wasn't hiding anymore. My name, Maya, was on the door. Within 2 years, Elena's Hearth wasn't just a bakery, it was an institution. We had multiple locations, a thriving wholesale business, awards lining the walls, different awards this time, for quality, community impact, entrepreneurship. I wasn't chasing my old empire. I built a new one, stronger, better, rooted in something real. And David and Mark, their stolen empire built on deceit. It started to falter. Turns out, without the original vision and integrity, things crumble. Bad investments, internal conflicts, key talent leaving. The last I heard, the company was facing serious financial trouble, drowning in the kind of debt and scandal they'd tried to pin on me. There was no dramatic courtroom showdown, no tearful confession. My revenge wasn't about destroying them. It was about building me. My success, built honestly from the ashes they left me in, was the ultimate answer. Seeing Elena's Hearth featured in Forbes, talking about sustainable business and community impact that was my confrontation. Knowing they saw it, knowing they knew the bankrupt baker had risen higher than they could have imagined, that was enough. They thought betrayal and bankruptcy would be the end of my story. They thought taking everything meant I had nothing left, but they forgot about the fire inside. They forgot that sometimes, when you burn everything down, you clear the ground for something stronger, something truer to grow in its place. My name is Maya. I lost an empire, and then I built a better one loaf of bread at a time.